Hey, everyone. Welcome. I am so excited to be here with you today as I get to chat with Catherine. We have an upcoming in-person event next month, and I was just too excited to wait until then to have these kinds of conversations. So I asked Catherine if she would join me today so we could just start that ball rolling and invite people into the conversation. For those that don't know me, I am Cassandra Quinn, and I am the owner, founder, CEO of Quinovate. I am also on the volunteer leadership team for the Chicago chapter of Conscious Capitalism and serve as the program's chair. And today we have Catherine. I'll let you introduce yourself. What should we know about you, Catherine? Who are you? What do you do in the world?
Well, I'm a career transition expert, business consultant, and the author of This Isn't Working: Evolving the Way We Work to Decrease Stress, Anxiety, and Depression.
I love it. And like I already mentioned, Catherine's going to be our guest speaker at an upcoming event. That event is happening on May 16th, and that is part of our Senior Leadership Author Series breakfast. And so that, as you just heard, she is the author of a book, part of the reason that we asked her to be a part of our author series. Go figure. And so if you are joining us live or you're catching our interview later on, please drop a hello or a replay comment so that we know that you were a part of the conversation. Feel free to ask questions if we don't happen to see those comments throughout the actual interview. Catherine and I love to come back and continue that conversation, and we'll answer those questions after the fact. And I think that's everything for now. So we're just gonna roll into our conversation today. So I know that you are the head of point A to point B transitions. So what should we know about the work that you do with point A to point B transitions?
Well, we help professionals who have been laid off or are pissed off find great opportunities. We also work with solo consultants, helping them create thriving practices. And what we do that's a little bit different than other career coaches is we look at the whole person, and we take into account everything that's going on in your life, your energy level, your health level, your commitments that you have to elder care or to special needs kids. Like we all have stuff going on. And we also look at your values. We ask specific questions and do some assessments to figure out what really drives you. Because when you're looking for happiness and success in your work, it really does boil down to your values. If you're not living your values, you will not be happy, period.
Yeah. And I think what's super important that you've already touched on that is connected to one of our 4 pillars for conscious capitalism is values, because that is so closely tied to our purpose. And I think what's interesting is a lot of times with conscious capitalism, we're having these conversations around conscious leadership and those who are running companies, owning companies. But what I think is really beautiful and unique about what you do is you're working with the people who are inside of these companies as employees. And tell me a little bit about then, how have you seen values being a part of people's decision making when they're figuring out where they want to work?
Whether they explicitly say it or not, it is or should be the deciding factor. And it can come in a very benign wrapping. So let's say you're interviewing for a company, and part of what you value is the lifetime value of a client. You want to get to know your clients. You want to serve your clients on a deeper level. You're committed to their success. That's what you bring into your work. Now, if you're interviewing with a company that has a different business model, that's a transactional business model where they're just looking to get more and more and more, there's nothing morally or ethically wrong with that business model. It's perfectly fine. But you as an employee or as a leader, for that matter, are not going to be happy because these people coming in, you won't know them. You won't have the connections. You won't be building, like you won't be satisfied on that level. So even something that's not, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a perfectly fine business model to just, be pinging the internet and having people come in and buy your widgets. totally fine, but you're not going to be happy there. Also, in a corporate culture that's very political or very competitive, if you're naturally collaborative, you're not going to be happy there. Ditto for somebody who's a driven, in your face, get stuff done. I don't run through the obstacles. You're not going to be happy in sort of a team, collaborative, we come to consensus decisions environment. No right or wrong or no judgment here from my side or anybody's side. It's just not the way you want to work.
Yeah. And I think that that's super important for those who are out there leading companies and are part of that hiring process, is how important having a conscious culture is to a successful business, and recognizing that you have a culture with your business by design or by default. There's always a culture. And I think what's really fascinating too is I think that a lot of times small companies or solopreneurs don't think that their companies have a culture, because they're like, it's just me, or it's me and a couple folks, but they absolutely do. Exactly. Like there is a culture, no matter the size of the company, whether, regardless of their reach within, from an internal stakeholder point of view, if it's just a solopreneur or a small team, or how big your reach is from a like customer standpoint. Yeah, absolutely. Where have you seen, like, I know we've already gotten into this conversation, but how do you see a commitment to conscious capitalism directly linking to the work that you do outside of where we maybe have already taken the conversation?
Conscious capitalism might be the bridge that we need right now. We have seen, I'd like to say unconscious capitalism or in-your-face capitalism or the dark side of capitalism not work out so well for a bunch of people, leading to short-term decisions that, or lack of investment for the longer term to meet quarterly reporting cadence to investors, that sort of thing. So I don't think there's anything inherently bad or evil about capitalism. So why can't we take it and use its power for good, which is why I was so drawn to conscious capitalism as an organization, and can't believe it wasn't on my radar until late last year, because I am literally your perfect person to come and be part of your group. And I've loved everybody I've met in the organization so far. So, that's what I'd say. I think that the 4 pillars, we'll talk about those probably more in depth, are a good start for any organization that wants to, do better for their people. And keeping that organization under resourced and undercapitalized serves no one. Doesn't serve your clients, doesn't serve your executives, doesn't serve your investors, doesn't serve your employees, doesn't serve anybody. So yes, you should make a tidy profit too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you make such a good point, bringing up the fact that obviously there's a lot of, as you said, the dark side of capitalism that is rearing in society right now. And I think that obviously leads people to the conclusion that capitalism is inherently bad or inherently evil. And in realities, those are warped or twisted versions of capitalism that is focused on extraction only and or at all, as opposed to creating 360 wins and elevating humanity, which from our standpoint as an organization and as a movement, when business is done right, when capitalism is done right, it has some of the most important and powerful opportunity for positive change in the world. And we believe that businesses have the opportunity to harness it for good and elevate humanity. So yeah, and I'm glad that that's how I came into the organization too, and to the movement. Was I was already out in the world, living my life, having these values, speaking to these things. And somebody said, do you know about conscious capitalism? And I thought they meant just like as a philosophy. And I was like, oh, I've heard people talk about that before. But what does that mean to you? And as they were talking, it became very clear that they meant that it was an organization. I was like, oh, and they were like, well, just everything that you're saying is so in alignment with them that I just assumed that you were already a part of it. And I feel like that feels like a kindred.
That's exactly what happened to me. Yeah. That's exactly what happened to me. When Mary reached out to me, and I'm just like, what? You're singing my song.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of us out there feeling like we're on little islands and not being able to connect and have these bigger conversations keeps the work from being as powerful as it can, which is what makes me excited about being able to have these kinds of events and bringing these like-minded and like-valued people together so that we're like, okay, how do we enhance this even further? Like, how do we bring this message out even more? And so that's why we're having you come on May 16th. And for those who might be tuning in now, we're talking with Catherine about conscious capitalism and workplace culture. We do have a breakfast coming up on Thursday, May 16th. It is our Leadership Author Series breakfast, and we'll tell you more about how you can register for that later. But just know that you can be a part of that event live in Chicago. But for the conversation now, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about what is something that people often misunderstand about how our work lives and mental health interconnect to the work that you're doing, and that you love to help people, that you want people to better understand, because they're out there just thinking the wrong things.
Okay. So let's start with what I started my TEDx talk with, and that was 10 years ago. We're still talking about this. It is a false dichotomy to separate the person from the professional. You are the person in the workplace. The workplace does necessarily come home with you. If you are having problems at work, if you're in a toxic work environment, if you're in a place of systemic overworking, if you are being bullied in the workplace, unfortunately, it happens a lot more than we talk about. This will necessarily impact you personally, possibly your mental and physical health, and it will inevitably come into your personal relationships, your romantic relationships, your parenting relationships, your other relationships in the community. Like, we can't put these in a bento box. They're not in separate categories as much as we would like to, right? I would love to keep my work stress, put it in its little bento box, and it'll be there when I come back in the morning. But it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you mentioned it earlier, this whole self approach, and that very much resonates with the way that I work and move through the world too, is that when we pretend like we can silo these pieces, or as business leaders and owners, if we expect people to function as if they can, that is where we are creating some of that toxic culture that is not supporting that whole person. How have you seen that affect the people that you're working with who are in those transitions and looking for career transitions?
Can you reframe that?
Yeah, absolutely. So because the people you are working with are often the employees who are looking for some kind of career transition, where have you seen?
Also the senior leaders. I'm doing a lot of C-level executives these days, or people at director levels who want to get to C-level executives. So I do have the executives look into it.
Oh, nice.
One thing we can talk about, it wasn't explicitly what you asked,
yeah,
but the way things change, even from something like investment. You wouldn't think that a change in investment in the organization would lead to a giant culture shift that could lead to mass exit for the door. But I'll tell you that 3 different people, one was the president, one was a director, but really had a C-level role, and somebody else at a very high level called me and said, we got VC investment in our company. The corporate culture changed. They're re-leveling our positions. I'm going to make less money. I got to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And the worker bees would say, oh, the muckety mucks got some extra money and investment. My job title is going to be fine. The name on the door didn't change. Everything is going to be status quo. And that is not true. It can change everything about the company, and the employees are just swirling because they're like, Well, nothing changed. I'm at the same company in the same title with the same job that I've been doing for the last X number of years. Also, a new management team. You can be in the same job, do it. You got good performance reviews. You've been there for 10 years. You're feeling sort of grounded and job secure. And then new management team comes in. Name didn't change. Nothing changed, except everything changed. And all of a sudden you don't fit and you feel like you're going crazy.
Oh, I really appreciate that you brought this into the conversation, because I think that sometimes we are thinking about the silos or the divisions, either like work and personal or maybe departmental. But there also are those invisible barriers sometimes, that everything you were saying, that are affecting these different levels within the organization. Yeah, I think that that's really fascinating, where people are calling and saying, hey, I have to get out because we have a new investor, and that changes everything. But that totally makes sense to me that that's happening. So,
but we have to start talking about this, because people really think that they're crazy or that they're overreacting. Oh, maybe it's fine. Maybe I can make this work. Maybe not. Maybe you can. And maybe you should wait 6 months. I always say that with a new management team when they come in, let the dust settle, wait it out if you can, see what happens. If there's somebody who's really terrible, maybe they blow themselves out. That happens a lot. But it's jarring. It's jarring.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that, as from a conscious leadership standpoint, we have to keep in mind, of like, all of the decisions that we're making are affecting not just us, not just the business entity, if you will, but like all of the people inside of it. The business is made up of people, right? And so thinking about how is this aligned with our values? How is this aligned with our purpose? And how am I going to help navigate the change management of this, and help people understand why this is valuable, or why I'm making this decision? Because I feel like a lot of times, leaders, myself included, sometimes will accidentally overshoot what we think people just and naturally will understand, or connect the dots. And then you go, oh, if they just let me give them more information, let me help them connect those dots. Do you see that going on in these kinds of conversations as well?
Oh my goodness, yes. Oh my goodness, yes. I don't think it's possible to over communicate in these situations, because you never know when somebody's tuned in or tuned out. You can send, unlimited emails and town hall meetings and offsites and whatever. But humans don't really like to change that much. We're good at it once you get us in the mood, get us moving, but we don't really like it. We get a little cranky. So I don't think it's possible to over communicate the change management aspect, but also the aspirational. You talked about the professional in their mission. There's also aligning yourself with the company's mission is extremely beneficial, from a job satisfaction point of view, from a productivity point of view, from a longevity point of view. So that's almost different messaging, right? We're switching to this ERP system because we're going to do da. Okay, fine. I'm like, la, la, la. Why do I care, right? At a certain level of the company, you don't care. Other levels, you care a lot. So why are we doing this? Why is it going to help the company? Why is it going to help our clients? Why is this going to make your job easier? Why is it going to decrease risk for the organization? Like all these pieces of it. Back in my earlier career, when I was working for the consulting companies, we put together these big proposals for these ERP system implementations that touch every aspect of the organization. And in order to save money, our prospects would want to cut out the communication piece, because it just seemed like a waste of money. It was the smallest part of the proposal always, but the one that they always thought that was the fat, or the consulting company trying to just, up our margin a little bit. And we're like, no, 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 no. We'll take out some of the technology stuff. That is the most important piece that will make or break this implementation. We can't cut that.
Yes. Oh, you're speaking my language. Sorry. I just got so excited. I interrupted you. Keep going. Sorry.
No. That's fine. Why is it speaking your language? Have you seen this happen?
Yes, absolutely. So early in my consulting, I focused a lot more on directly speaking to exactly what we're talking about, of how important effective communication is, and how many gaps there are going on in all directions in our lives around that. And I learned very quickly that if I focused on trying to support people directly with that, I was going to have very few clients, frankly, because exactly what you were saying, people just weren't willing to invest in the communication portions. They just saw it as, like you said, the fat. And so I had to realize that it has to be interwoven more, even though that's still very much, like I said, speaks to my heart, speaks my language. The communication is the connecting.
You have to bring it in the side door.
Yeah, you do.
Side door.
Yep.
You tell them this, you call it that, and then you bring it in the side door, because that's actually the most important part.
It really is. And I had up for a moment, I'll pop it back up for a second, since I'm going to reference it directly, but stakeholder orientation. And that's a lot of what you're talking about too, of as leaders, we're thinking about not only how does this affect our shareholders, our clients, we're thinking about how does this affect, as conscious leaders, our team, our business as a whole, our strategic partners, our vendors, the environment. We all have these primary stakeholders, our community, right? And community can mean a lot of different things depending on the kind of business you have, right? It might be, if you have a storefront, it might be your physical neighborhood. If you're more like us, where we have a digital community, that community might be quite a bit larger. But what I really loved that I think as a conscious leader, I'm always thinking about my responsibility to stakeholder orientation and considering the impact in all of those directions. But you mentioned the importance of employees being able to align with the purpose and mission of a company, and understanding the why of decisions of, oh, I should care about this because it affects our customers, or it affects this team, or it affects the way that we do this.
From getting censored by the SEC. You might not want that to happen.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, that is considered, that example is stakeholder orientation, the business as a stakeholder. It to continue to be a business and to stay compliant and be able to do the things that we're here to do, we have to do X, Y, Z, right? And so considering the needs of the business too. I love that. I knew I was going to have so much fun talking to you, but I just never know what direction the conversation is going to go. And I'm glad that things have unfolded this way. But I know you're coming in to talk because you have this great book, It Isn't Working. I know that people are always looking for yeah, I have my copy too. Hey. And so we'll make sure that there are links to be able to purchase your book in the comments section of our chat, our live, after we wrap up, so that people can find that and get their own copies of it. But I also know it's really easy to talk philosophically or at this high level and not get into practical tips. And so I know that people really are craving, okay, that sounds great, but what do I do with it? How do I make this happen? So what are some practical tips on changing corporate landscape post 2020, and especially in this newest way where we're seeing a lot more return to office mandates? What are some practical tips that you have?
Okay. Return to office, I want to address separately because that's really important.
Yeah.
Return to office is kind of like a breach of contract. You signed up for a certain work environment with certain parameters, and then they said, oh, sorry, we were just kidding. You need to be on site all day, every day. And by the way, we're going to track you with your badge, or maybe put like some chip inside you, which actually exists. Do not laugh at me.
No. I'm just laughing out of horror, honestly, because it's laugh so I don't cry.
It's really horrifying. But what I can tell you is my phone will start ringing when those mandates come down, and your highest performers will start evaluating their options.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's usually your salespeople. Like, it's usually your top salespeople who are like, yeah, I ain't got time for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just start looking at the names of people who are reaching out to me. I'm like, oh, RTO at such and such company. I guess my phone's going to start ringing, and it does. So that's a problem. Of course, the companies are completely able to change the rules at any time. Most of us live in at-will states. They can do, we can all leave or not according to our will, but it's at your own peril and a brain drain of your best employees, because your slackers are going to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So that's one thing to think of. That's the RTO, my RTO rant.
Yeah.
And also some people, by the way, don't like working remotely. I don't really understand that. But a lot of people are extroverts and want to bounce off people and are much happier, and they really hate working alone, and they should go to the office.
Yeah, I agree.
We need to self-select. You like to work this way, find a job that enables you to work this way. You, extrovert, want to go in and sit in war rooms and solve the world's problems. You should go do that. There's plenty of jobs for everybody. Don't get in the scarcity mindset.
Yeah. I think that the return to office to me is fascinating because obviously a lot of workplaces had to think on their feet quickly to not lose their entire workforce when we had to be remote, right? Now we're 5 years in. We found ways that made it possible that work could be done remotely. So now there isn't the excuse that it can't be, right?
But we all know it can be because we all did it for a year and a half.
Right.
We all know it can be.
And that doesn't mean that there weren't issues that came with that we have to solve for, that there are benefits that we're missing out on being in person. But I think that what is missed a lot of times in this conversation, and I'm curious of your opinion on this, because I know sometimes you and I don't always agree as we kind of wrestle with these conscious capitalist ideas. But I am wondering what your point of view is when people, I lost it.
Let me jump in. The two aspects of the RTO that we might want to dive into as to like why companies are doing this. One, the old paradigm of command and control, which directly ties to your conscious leadership question.
Yeah.
Command and control can work for short terms, mostly isn't going to work anymore. I don't think people have the appetite for it. I'm not sure we can put the genie back in the bottle. Another thing that's driving this RTO is clearly commercial leases and commercial real estate, which is really hard to get out of.
Yep. And yes, those are both great points. And you did help trigger the thing that I was going to say. So thank you. This idea that these are just channels that we work in, right? Either it's remote and we are at a distance from each other, or we're in person. But that's not the underlying like outcome. It's just the way that we're getting to the outcome. And I think that there's a bit of laziness, or maybe laziness is maybe not the right word or the reason for it, but like just a lack of understanding. How do we get to the outcome we desire through this channel, which is why they're making people come back to work too, in addition to what you're saying? What are your thoughts on that?
We just right size the job descriptions. There's certain job descriptions that are easily done fully. Let me give you let's make this practical. I am a practical human. I talk like this and then I dive down. I've done a lot of project management. Okay. So my last corporate job was a job at Deloitte. I worked in the sales, marketing, and business development group. I was a proposal manager. I thought I'd negotiated a remote job. My boss was totally fine with it. And then at the very last minute, the director of the group was not fine with it and that I had to be in the office 5 days a week. And I should have walked. But the process had taken so long that my pipeline was dry and I needed the money and I had a car. So, right. So I did that. The first thing that happened when they rejiggered who was going to be in the office, and they wanted to back out of some real estate because they had too many cubicles and stuff, was to make my group fully remote. There was zero reason for me to ever be in the office. I worked with a group mostly in Milwaukee. I never saw them. We didn't have video conferencing back then. Well, I mean, we could have used it, but we didn't. We just did conference calling. By the way, when I worked with the Chicago team and they were in a higher floor that had a different elevator bank, we met by phone. I didn't even go downstairs to get to the other elevator bank to go up to the 22nd floor. So my having to be in the office was absurd. So, and the first thing that they changed, my entire group works fully remote, never goes into the office.
Yeah.
So that's a tactical example of just like,
yeah.
I could have had a V8.
I love that callback, old school callback. I love it. Well, what are your thoughts then around, well, I should be mindful of time. I want to dive into this conversation, and I just, as always, need more time with you. So I'll move us along from RTO for now, but know that I have more questions about your opinions on that at some later date.
I have a lot of opinions, so we could be there for a while.
I'm curious though, and I think that you started, you were touching on it already with that story of the workplace that you were in, but tell us more about your origin story of like why this topic matters to you. What's your own personal journey? Was it really that job, or was there more to it?
This topic matters to me on so many levels. There's the personal level that I did my TEDx talk about, where it was called Sustaining Personal Energy to Fuel Professional Success. And I start out with a story about how I almost stroked out in my boss's office on Christmas Eve with too tight a deadline, not enough staff, and a technology malfunction. I just completely lost my stuff, and the blood drained from my face. I almost blacked out and like literally almost died. So there's that, but it's not just me. There are a lot of people in my practice who come in and tell me that they had a scare and went to the emergency room thinking they were having a heart attack. This happens a lot. Panic attacks and heart attacks feel exactly the same. And I am tired and frustrated, pulling my hair out, and fully committed to having that stop happening. I don't want people calling me when they're leaving the emergency room because they thought they were having a heart attack. Work shouldn't be making us sick. And I am so passionate about trying to address the fallout of mental and physical side effects of that's work related. You know, we're going to have stress. We can sprint. Like, it's not a question of, well, you're not going to do a product launch, Catherine. You know, we work long hours on product. Yes, we do. And we can sprint. But we also have to take care of ourselves, and we can't do it under, 2 or 3 down, understaffed in a team, and the work is spread out between everybody for a year and a half. Like, we can't do that. Yeah. So I am so strongly committed because of my personal story and what I've seen in my clients. Yeah. And I just don't think working should be making us sick.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think what's not talked about enough either is that as a conscious leader, you are hiring people usually who have some kind of corporate trauma. And no matter what you do to take care of them, to create a conscious culture, to make them feel safe, and that they can bring their whole selves to work, that they do matter in that more holistic way, some of that trauma is going to show up sometimes, and having to navigate that.
Yes. Also, by the way, leaders, you who have come out of the cultures you've worked for may have been in a toxic culture, and you will accidentally bring some of that, or on purpose, because you think that's what a productive culture looks like.
Yeah.
A lovely story with a woman who rolled out of an agency and started her own agency, and accidentally created a terribly toxic work environment because she just thought that was the way it had to be to serve the clients.
Yeah. Well, and I may have shared this with you in a private conversation we had at some point, but I had some of that in my first business. I ran a theater, and there is, just a lot of unhealthy or toxic things that can sometimes happen in that industry, that I was taught. It was drilled into me at a college level. I had professors teaching us, expected never go to weddings or funerals, don't expect all of these different things, right? To expect to work long hours, expect all of these things that I have now learned are really unhealthy. And some of that I immediately rejected when I was running my company, my theater, but some of that I had a blind spot, and I just didn't realize how unhealthy and toxic it was. And so
Exactly.
I was perpetuating that, even though I was trying to be a good leader. Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. But we can be very good people with very good intentions and accidentally bring this stuff with us.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of that I think you mentioned scarcity mindset sometime earlier in this conversation. And I think that sometimes is a huge driving factor that creates toxic work cultures. But I know that was part of what happens in the theater world for sure.
Yeah.
But it was one of those, like, when you know better, you do better, though. And that's the journey we're all on. And
Right.
so I'm curious, do you have some simple things that leaders can do to create a better culture? What are those things that we can today start implementing?
Well, I'll tie it back to what you said. Everybody has some kind of baggage, from some invalidation, could be a minor slight, to a major head trip. Assume that your people have some kind of trauma, because they likely do. Mm-hmm. So be kind. Like, go in with a generous assumption. If somebody does something that seems out of character, ask a few extra questions, learn why. Don't jump to conclusions. Treat your people like they are people. They also have stuff going on in their life. Their partner has COVID. Their kid broke his arm. They're trying to find a facility for their mother who has dementia. Like, my folks skew older, like 40 to 60. So they always have some kid stuff going on and some parent stuff going on, if they're lucky enough to still have parents. Like, we just do at this age, or a health diagnosis. Like, just assume, go into every conversation where you're irritated, and assume that something else is going on, because it usually is.
Yeah.
Don't accept fine as an answer. We are social animals. We can sense when something's not right, and people we work with, we see them more than we see our partners and our kids. Like, we know these people. So if somebody says, "Oh, hi, Susie, how are you?" And Susie's like, "Fine." You're like, "Really fine or not so fine?" Like, it depends on how well you know Susie. Just like, "Susie, you don't really seem like yourself today. Is something going on?" You don't have to pry, but just ask the extra question to get somebody. Do you need, look, it seems like you're really struggling with this project. Is there anything I can do to help? Do we need to bring somebody onto the team? Like, ask the extra question. I think would save a lot of problems. And another thing is to just not be a jerk. Like, it's really so easy. You and I used a different word offline, but don't be a jerk. Yeah. It's really not that hard. It costs you nothing, and the payback is so high.
It's I think difficult, though, to conceptualize the not. I agree with you. It doesn't cost you anything. It can make a huge difference. It can cost you everything if you decide to be a jerk, right? So you and I are on the same page. But from a practical standpoint, how do we as leaders know if we're being a jerk? Like, are there
send emails at 2 a.m. There's something called delay send. Have it show up in their inbox at 8:30.
Yep.
And I don't care about your friendly Microsoft. Yes, if you're working with a global team and you know it's a good time in their time zone, send it, whatever. Don't expect responses. These are true stories. People tell me they're terrible stories, because that's what I do, is get them out of terrible situations into better ones. Yeah. This person was telling me that the CEO of the company used to text them at 6:30 a.m. on a Saturday and expect an answer by 8:30 a.m. on a Saturday. Don't do that. That is called being a jerk. Very specific, very specifically. What else don't you do? Don't take credit for somebody else's work. Remember who came to you with the idea and say, Cassandra brought this great idea on Tuesday. I gave it some thought. I think maybe we should move that forward.
Mm-hmm.
Don't demean people in a meeting. If somebody says something that doesn't align with what you think, don't immediately diminish them or make them feel like they shouldn't have said anything. Create a parking lot and say, you know what? That's interesting. Let's put it in a parking lot and we'll revisit it at the end of the meeting. Or, Joe, you know what? That's fascinating. I'd love to talk to you more about that offline. Let's circle back after. Like, there's so many ways to just, nobody puts baby in a corner. Don't put baby in the corner. Put it at the conference room.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's important to realize that, like we said earlier, a lot of times people don't mean to be bad leaders, and they just have blind spots because their focus or goals are different, or their values might be somehow different. And so they may not realize, I don't know how they don't realize, but they might not realize how unreasonable it is to be texting somebody at 6:30 on a Saturday morning and expecting an answer at 8:30. But if that's the work culture you want to create, you need to speak to that up front before people are accepting offers to join your team, to say, this is the environment. This is what I expect.
This is how we do things around here. Totally understand if it's not in alignment with you.
Yeah.
If you actually like your partner and want to spend time with them on a Saturday morning, probably not the job for you.
Yep. And I think that I love how you still have opinions about, it's very clear. Do not message Catherine on a Saturday and expect her to work.
I like coffee with my friend.
I do too. And I think that as leaders, it's not just about not doing those things, but proactively making sure that your team all adheres to that. My team hears me all the time speak to, let's not, it's, an afternoon on a Friday. Let's not send that out. Let's wait until next week. We don't want that to bog somebody down, or, we can't do that because that would fall on a weekend, or we're not going to ask that of somebody. But you have to really be modeling that behavior and leading by example.
From the top. It comes from the top. If the CEO's doing it, whatever your policy is in place, everybody else is going to fall in underneath. Guaranteed.
Yep. Well, what is one topic that you wish people would ask about this, but they don't, that you would love to share?
Self-care isn't self-indulgent. Self-care is critical for professional success over the long term.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I want to unpack that. I noticed the time though. So
there's an 18-minute TED talk all about that. We can put a link to that.
Yes. That's your TEDx talk, you said? Yeah. So we'll make sure
I close my TEDx talk. Self-care is not self-indulgent.
Yeah.
And that, goes doubly for women, but men too. Beat themselves up and think they're going to. We get paid to ideate these days, right? Mm-hmm. That's what, or at least the people I work with, white collar professionals, we get paid for creative problem solving, for innovation. If you're exhausted and stressed out, those ideas are not coming. Mm-hmm. They're not coming.
Yeah. I think that that's really important. And I'm excited to share your link for your TEDx talk so people can hear more just about that particular topic. And hopefully we can bring that into the conversation that we'll be having on May 16th as well.
It turned into the book. That was the inciting incident. So the book is just the longer version.
I love it. Where can people get your book, by the way? Where let's talk a bit about that, since we've teased people with the book.
Absolutely. This Isn't Working, Evolving the Way We Work to Decrease Stress, Anxiety, and Depression by moi. You can buy it wherever you buy books. If you want to see what people thought about it, we've got 35-star reviews on Amazon. So whether you want to buy it from Amazon or not, probably more in alignment with conscious capitalism is that, what is that website that directs you to independent bookstores so you get the consolidated?
I think it's bookstore.org or bookshop.org.
Bookshop.org. Yeah. So if you want to support small business owners and keep them local and keeping books, because books are awesome, you can do it through that. But go check out the reviews if you want to sort of see what people said about the book. It's an interesting array of different people chiming in. So you can do that. What else did you want to know? Oh, you can find me at point A to point B transitions.com is my company. And across social media, I am Catherine Altman Morgan on literally everything except X, because I don't use that anymore. And you can find me there. I'd love to connect with you.
Yay, so good. I'm so glad that we got to have this conversation. I was trying to grab up the book because talking about what people have to say about it, the quote that's on the front of the book.
Tom crushed that. I love him so much.
Gosh, it's so good. Is it okay if I read it now to everybody? Okay, so I think this is a great way for us to wrap up our time together. So I'm just going to read this. I can almost imagine thousands of people giving a collective sigh of relief saying, OMG, I thought it was just me. Catherine does more than just address the elephant in the office. She parades the elephant through the workplace and shows us how we can tame the beast. Oh, it's so good. Yay. So I am excited for you to teach us how to tame the beast when we come together on May 16th. I super appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. Is there anything else we need to say before we wrap up, Catherine, that I've forgotten?
No. Not at all. Thank you so much for having me, Cassandra.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll remember when we wrap up that I need to go to LinkedIn and the other places that this is streaming live and drop links to the event so that people can come join us in person, link to the book in case people want to check that out, and a link to your TEDx talk. Thank you, everybody, and we'll enjoy continuing the conversation with you soon.